Welcome to another video tutorial on Easy System Designer. This video shows how to carry out manual drive sizing and how selects and designs specific products for drive sizing. A travel drive has been selected here. The motion data has already been entered, and the physical requirements of the application have been calculated. You are in the pre-selection screen and already logged in. This allows you to switch the product selection from assisted mode to manual mode so that you can select products yourself. Once this is done, you click Continue. The first thing that appears is the motor selection table. The structure of the selection screens is always the same. You have a filter area. You have the table with products, and you have reference information about the selected product. This allows you to search for, evaluate, and select specific solutions. The product table contains type information, rating data, and pre-calculated utilization values. When you move the mouse over the parameters, the tooltip explains the meaning of these parameters. You can also sort the columns, for example, by series. If you want to include additional columns in the sorting, you press the Shift key and click on the column headers. On the right-hand side, there is additional reference information about the selected motor. Here, you can take another look at the determined requirements of the application. You see the torque speed characteristic curve. The blue line represents the requirements of the application. The red dotted line is the continuous characteristic curve of the selected motor, and the red solid line shows the maximum characteristic curve. This is the maximum torque that can be achieved by the motor-inverter combination. On the left side are selection filters. These can be used to narrow down or expand the range of solutions. For example, you can select the motor series or remove filters that have already been set. The Reset button allows you to reset all of the filters that have been set. If you want a little more space in the selection table, you can hide this area, but you can also show it again. The best strategy for achieving an optimal drive solution is to first select the motor and then the gearbox. Therefore, the utilization values are pre-calculated values. They were calculated using an assumed ideal gear ratio. These values change as further steps are taken. Based on the preliminary load factors, the colored markings indicate whether limits have been exceeded. For example, the maximum torque load has exceeded the 100% limit in this solution. The motor does not reach the maximum required torque. A warning is displayed accordingly. This can also be clearly seen in the torque characteristic. This solution achieves the maximum torque, but a small reserve factor is still taken into account. Here, you can decide whether this is sufficient for the application. If not, you can choose this solution, for example. It is marked in green. The limits have not been exceeded. So far, so good. Once you have selected the desired motor, you click Continue. The next step is to select the gearbox. The same principle applies here, but with gearbox-specific selection filters and parameters. Since the gearbox selection has an influence on the motor load, you also see the load values of the previously selected motor here. Once you have selected the desired gearbox, you click Continue. The next step offers the mechanical brake for the motor. If no brake is desired, it can be deselected via the selection. You select the first brake and click Continue. To stay informed about the status of the solution implemented so far, the Status Messages section always contains the latest warnings and notifications. You are now in the inverter selection. You see which inverter matches the motor selection and the application requirements. In the example, there is selected a 2.8 kilowatt geared motor. You can clearly see that a 2.2 kilowatt inverter is already perfectly adequate. It completely covers the requirements of the application. This only applies to the application scenario entered. Other application scenarios must be checked separately. Once you have everything selected, you click Continue. A speed encoder is required for servo control. The table shows which encoder systems can be attached to the motor and whether they can also be evaluated by the inverter. It also shows whether the safety technology standard is met. You select an encoder and click Continue. In the last selection step, the braking resistor is selected. In our example, generator energy occurs. The utilization values show which resistors meet the requirements and which do not. It is also possible to select no resistor. In this case, it can be deactivated with this switch. Furthermore, a resistor circuit can also be used to safely dissipate high energy requirements. Once you have everything selected, you click Continue. Done. The drive solution is now available with all the relevant information. It is now possible to add the sized drive solution to the shopping cart, create a report, or save the whole thing as a project. If you want to change the solution, you can navigate back directly, change the product selection, and complete the process. Feel free to watch our other videos to get the most out of the Easy System Designer.